To illustrate, let me quote from Osama bin Laden's fatwa. Listen what these people tell themselves and each other. Quote, there's no more important duty than pushing the American enemy out of the Holy Land. No other priority except belief could be considered before it. There is no precondition for this duty, and the enemy should be fought with one's best abilities. If it is not possible to push back the enemy except by the collective movement of the Muslim people, then there is a duty on the Muslims to ignore the minor differences among themselves. Even the military personnel who are not practicing Islam are not exempted from the duty of jihad against the enemy. It should be clearly understood that a central tenet of jihadist beliefs is the belief that God is one. He has no equals. He has no partners. This is important. If one believes that God is one and all that matters of rule giving or lawmaking belongs to him, no human being, no government could make laws or alter the Sharia's laws of God. This would be, for all intents, setting oneself up to be the equal of God. Herein lies the problem that these militant Islamists have with the West and secular Muslim countries. This belief applied equally to infidels and Muslim heretics. The bottom line is that any government or order of law other than Sharia is illegitimate. This belief in their minds justifies the killing of heretical Muslims and non-Muslims alike. This is not recent thinking. A prominent early 20th century Egyptian Muslim ideologue named Hassan al-Banna professed this point about Muslims and non-Muslims heretics. He stated, quote, we will not stop at this point, but will pursue this evil force to its own land, invade its western heartland, and struggle to overcome it until all the world shouts the name of the Prophet and the teachings of Islam are spread throughout the world. All religion will be exclusively for Allah. He went on to say that this violence would not be to avenge wrong suffered, nor to kill the unbelievers, but to save mankind from its many problems. Are we starting to get a picture of who the enemy may be? It's also important that al-Banna's jihadist interpretation of Islam is that they will reject any system of laws not based on Sharia. Democracy, why do they hate us? Democracy, he claimed, is the ultimate expression of idolatry, giving reason for the hatred of Western values. This is about them. It's not about us. Al-Banna is not the only studied ideologue. Another named Sayyid Qutb wrote that, quote, Islam has a mandate to order the whole of human life, and that the Western idea of separation between religion and the rest of life is, quote, a hideous schizophrenia that would lead to the downfall of white civilization and therefore its replacement by Islam. Qutb maintained that political and religious ideology of the jihadists is derived directly from the Quranic argument that God, unique and without partner, is the only being of sovereignty. Therefore, the only role for national leaders is to implement God's laws. This gives the jihadists their belief that attacking secular or Muslim heretic societies is justified. Qutb basically justified all-out warfare on all of these societies. Where does that leave us today? It leaves us with a discussion that should be much deeper than the resolution that is in front of us. The resolution in front of us is a shallow political document. Let me return to Osama bin Laden's fatwa against the West. Let me use his own words in calling on all Muslims. He says, the explosions at Riyadh, at Al-Khobar, is a warning of this volcanic eruption emerging. To further his murderous goals, bin Laden then went on to outline the terrorist approach to his holy war by saying, quote, it must be obvious to you that due to the imbalance of power between our armed forces and the enemy forces, a suitable means of fighting must be adopted, i.e. using fast-moving light forces that work under complete secrecy. In other words, to initiate a guerrilla warfare where the sons of the nation and not the military forces take part in it. And as you know, it is wise in the present circumstances for the armed military forces not to be engaged in conventional fighting with the forces of the Crusader enemy. unless a big advantage is likely to be achieved and great losses induced on the enemy's side. That will help to expel the defeated enemy from the country. He goes on, therefore, efforts should be concentrated on destroying, fighting, and killing the enemy until by the grace of Allah it is completely defeated. The time will come, by the permission of Allah, when you'll perform your decisive role so that the word of Allah will be supreme and the word of the infidels will be the inferior. You will hit with iron fist against the aggressors. End of quote. The modern words of bin Laden alone do not adequately explain the current militant Islamic threat to the United States and its friends around the world. Again, in their own words, this quote from a senior al-Qaeda leader. Islam, quote, Islam became to be the only hope in jihad under the banner of Islam to become a solution for all of the enemies of America and of those weakened nations, even to the leftists and peace groups in the Christian world. Whoever follows the writings of some of the Western authors would find that some of them started to declare through their writings about the American tyranny that there is no hope to face America other than through the armed Muslims, to the extent that in one of the demonstrations that included hundreds of thousands against globalization and war in Italy, the demonstrations carried a picture of bin Laden, placing Che Guevara's hat on it and drawing him to be a Che Guevara look-alike. They wrote under his picture, anti-American. Through this action, they expressed that the symbol of today's Islamic jihad is the only solution to face America. Mr. Speaker, here's the true threat to America in the West, this militant Islamic jihad. A jihad that spans the globe, including attacks in Bali, in Spain, in the United Kingdom, in the Philippines, in Kashmir, in Kenya, in Jordan, Israel, Nigeria, and yes, in the United States and Iraq. What is not being discussed is this global problem, this threat to peace and stability everywhere in the world. Why, I ask, is the focus so keenly on Iraq as the problem, the only problem for us to debate? Iraq is not the problem. It is but one front in this larger war. The American people are not being well served by our leaders in the media that is solely focused on the conflict in Iraq. This is a single front in a much larger war. Mr. Speaker, let me close with these final thoughts about the militant Islamic threat we face not only in the front in Iraq, but indeed around the world, including here in America. There is a fundamental clash of civilizations at work here. There is a fundamental belief by the jihadists that Islam must expand to fill the entire world, or else falsehood in its many guises will do so. This belief includes their fact that democracy, liberalism, human rights, personal freedoms, international law, international institutions are illegal, illegitimate, and sinful. Democracy, and in particular the United States democracy, is the focus of their wrath because it is considered the center of liberalism. This is not an enemy with whom we can negotiate. We must contain them and defeat them. Mr. Speaker, the resolution before us does not address this threat, a very real threat to our very existence. We are at war, and I fear we don't even know that we are under attack. This myopic resolution does not recognize or address that threat. I urge my colleagues in the House to vote no on this resolution. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.